Which druid is the best druid, and which is the worst? This week, we take a look at each of the druid archetypes to decide which is a roaring success, and which is a little unbearable. Hello players and GMs, I am Reese and welcome to another video by Jetpack7. Before we get started today, I just want to remind you to please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. With just a simple click, you help out our channel so much and allow me to make more stuff, which is awesome. So thank you all in advance for helping us out. This week, I am continuing the ranking of every archetype in 5e with a class I don't actually have a whole lot of experience with, the Druid. This one took a bit more reading on my end because I've never really played a druid in more than a one-shot or two, and I've only been DMing one for a short while. It's weird to think that after all these years of running games, I've never really had a druid in my group. Maybe that speaks to the overall strength of the class, or maybe my players just hate nature. Who knows? Either way, I'm going to take an in-depth look at all 5 of the druid circles and decide once and for all which one takes the cake as the nature-slinging, shape-shifting, tree-hugging extraordinaire. Now, I have to say, as I was looking through all of the archetypes, they're all honestly pretty dang good. They each offer some fun, non-casting mechanics that I haven't given enough credit in the past, honestly. Like, seriously, play a druid, guys. I don't know why I haven't seen many of them up until now. They're all really cool. But sadly, if I'm going to rank them, one of them has to be the worst. So, let's go ahead and kick the sucker off with what is unfortunately the weakest of the 5, the Circle of Spores. This archetype is a fun, and in my opinion, pretty successful attempt at creating an option for Druid that doesn't rely so heavily upon spellcasting. The only thing holding it back from getting further up the list is that I think it is pretty front-loaded. Many of the significant features come early on and don't scale super well into the later stages of the game. One big boon is that right at the beginning you get an expanded spell list containing spells like Blindness, Deafness, Blight, and Cloud Kill, which are all really great spells. Your first ability is the only real scaling one, and is probably the strongest feature this class gets in regards to dealing damage. It's called Halo of Spores, and essentially allows you to use your reaction to deal necrotic damage to a creature anytime it enters a space within 10 feet of you, or starts its turn there. The damage starts at a d4 and scales to a d10. They have to make a con save, and if they succeed, they don't take any damage. The reason I say this is strong is because you can just use this however many times you want. There's no limit to it, and it would honestly be pretty easy to find an opportunity to use this every turn. In addition, the second feature you get can add to this one's strength. Symbiotic Entity, the other feature you get at second level, allows you to expend a wild shape as an action and gain 4 temp HP per druid level for 10 minutes. In addition, your Halo of Spores deals an additional die of damage, so it basically doubles the damage of that, and your melee attacks also deal an extra d6 of poison damage. So yeah, there is some nice synergy between those two features, but again, the best thing about it is the damage from your Halo of Spores gets pretty nice. Though even 2d10 isn't a whole lot at 14th level, all things considered, but still free damage is free damage. And that's when this archetype starts to fall off a bit. At 6th level, you can essentially animate a corpse with the stats of a zombie. It can only take the attack action, which is all I'd ever really use it for, honestly, and I'd probably only ever use that for grapple attacks because the slam attack is pretty damn underwhelming. Your 10th level feature essentially allows you to throw your Halo of Spores into a 10-foot cube somewhere else as a bonus action, which is honestly pretty nice. Being able to do that and use your reaction to cause additional damage on another creature's turn can really start to add up. But a 10-foot cube isn't a huge space, sadly, so you're probably only going to be hitting one creature with that unless your GM is grouping them all up for whatever reason. And at 14th level, you gain immunity to Blinded, Deafened, Frightened, and Poisoned, and any critical hits become normal hits unless you're incapacitated. This feature is nice too, but honestly, kind of niche. I find myself frightened relatively often at high levels, but I think I'd rather have a more active feature here than something I'll probably only feel the effects of here or there. So again, this circle isn't weak by any means, but it does leave a little bit to be desired when you get past the early portions of its levels. In 4th place, we have the Circle of Dreams. I honestly really enjoy this circle. It might be my second favorite one in terms of its flavor and the fun features it gets, but it just isn't a massively potent archetype when it comes to contribution to a game. In fact, the only reason I could justify putting it over the Spores archetype is for the very first feature called Balm of the Summer Court. When you choose this circle, you gain a pool of d6s with a number of d6s equal to your druid level. As a bonus action, you can expend up to half of those on any creature within 120 feet and heal them for the amount rolled. They also gain additional temp HP equal to the number of d6s you chose to use. And this ability recharges on a short rest. It's another archetype that gets pretty much an innate healing word, but this one feels a little bit better than healing word because it has a range of 120 feet, and you can expend multiple dice if needed. So yeah, this feature is pretty crazy, and it is kind of the only reason I placed it above the Spore Druid. Because after that, you do get a fun feature called Heart of Moonlight and Shadow, which is essentially this big invisible bubble that makes you better at taking long rests. You and your party gain +5 to stealth and perception checks while inside it, and the light from campfires and stuff isn't visible from the outside. So you basically get a little campsite that you can use for every long rest. Relatively helpful, but nothing to write home about. The next feature is one you get at 10th level called Hidden Paths, which allows you to use a bonus action to teleport 60 feet, or use an action to teleport an ally 30 feet, but you can only do it a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. I like this ability, and it could definitely be pretty nice, but the unfortunate part is that it recharges on a long rest only, and at this point in the game, basically having Misty Step V2 just isn't that huge. I love that they're trying to give the Druid more bonus actions that don't involve being a Moon Druid and using Wild Shape, so this is definitely a strong feature, but at this point in the game, it just isn't going to be as impactful as you'd think. And finally, at 14th level, you get Walker in your dreams, which allows you to get a free cast of either Dream, Scrying, or Teleportation Circle when you finish Short Rest. The Teleportation Circle is cool because it takes you to the last place you finished a long rest on your plane of existence, so basically you can just hearth your party back to wherever you woke up this morning. Overall, I think this circle is really cool, and I do want to play it someday, but when you're ranking them in power, it definitely has to be somewhere near the bottom. Third place was a bit of a toss-up for me, because the more I looked at the second and third place circles, the stronger they both became. But after some time and consideration, I have to put the Land Druid in third. I gotta be honest, I've undersold the Land Druid in the past. I always thought it was a much weaker Druid circle than it really is. To start off, you get an additional Druid cantrip, which is pretty underwhelming because Druid cantrips are underwhelming, but then you get Natural Recovery, which is the Druid's answer to a Wizard's Arcane Recovery. You can regain spell slots on a short rest equal to half your Druid level rounded down. That's the thing, the Land Druid is essentially the Druid's wizard, because they also get expanded spell lists. You choose a terrain from a list like Grassland, Underdark, or Mountains, and then you get an expanded spell list based on that terrain. Some are more utility focused, others more combat focused, but a few of them really stood out to me as containing some particularly potent spells. The nice thing about these spells is that they're always prepared and don't count towards your number of total prepared spells. It's one of my favorite aspects of the Cleric domain, so you know I have to love it here too. Unfortunately for the circle, everything after the expanded spell list is pretty much just fine. At 6th level, you get Land's Stride, which allows you to move through non-magical difficult terrain without being slowed down and without taking damage if it has thorns or whatever. You also have advantage on saves against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede your movement, as with the Entangle spell, so that's pretty, niche, to say the least. At 10th level, you can't be charmed or frightened by elementals or fae, also niche, and are immune to poison and disease, which is actually helpful. The niche features continue at 14th level when you gain Nature's Sanctuary. Whenever a beast or plant attacks you, they have to make a wisdom save or the attack automatically misses. Honestly, there just aren't many beasts or plants that I'm super worried about by 14th level, so this feature feels kinda sad to me. But still, the expanded spell list as well as Natural Recovery I think solidify this circle as a solid contender for 3rd place. In 2nd place, I decided to put the Circle of the Shepherd. I love this archetype, and I think it is officially my favorite one of this group. It gives a whole crap ton of utility to your allies, which I think should be the purpose of a Druid, more so than being a self-enabling class. To start off, you can speak, read, and write Sylvan, as well as talk to beasts. Could be helpful, but likely a feature you won't get to use much for practical reasons. The real power of this class comes with the other feature at 2nd level, Spirit Totem. Once per short or long rest, you can summon a totem within 60 feet of you that projects an aura over a 30-foot radius. You can move the totem 60 feet as a bonus action every turn. There are 3 different spirits you can choose from. The Bear Spirit gives your allies temp HP equal to 5 plus your Druid level when it appears, as well as advantage on strength checks and saving throws while within the radius. The Hawk Spirit gives you the ability to use your reaction to grant advantage to an ally's attack while they're within the aura, as well as giving everyone within the aura advantage on perception checks. And lastly, the Unicorn Spirit grants allies advantage on checks to detect a creature within the spirit's aura, and a really cool effect that heals all allies within your aura for your Druid level whenever you use a spell slot to heal an ally that is also in that aura. I love this feature because it gives you 3 very different choices that could help in many different situations and offers a nice amount of utility for your party. At 6th level, you gain the Mighty Summoner feature, which basically just buffs any beasts or fae that you summon. They get 2 extra HP for every hit die that creature has, and the damage from its natural weapons is considered magical for the sake of ignoring resistances. This is pretty nice, honestly, because I found that many of the summoning spells in 5e don't really do much for combat capabilities, just due to the beast's tendency to be, well, weak and useless. This is even further improved at 10th level, when any beast or fae you've summoned regains HP equal to half your druid level when they end their turn within the aura of one of your spirit totems. And finally, at 14th level, you get a cool feature called Faithful Summons, which essentially casts Conjure Animals at 9th level for free if you get knocked to 0 HP or incapacitated. It summons 4 beasts of CR 2 or lower to protect your body and attack your enemies. Again, being protected by CR 2 beasts at 14th level feels a bit like using Saran Wrap to stop a car, but I like the imagery, and who knows, it may come in handy. The beasts, not the Saran Wrap. And in first place, the Druid the GM loves to hate. The Druid with an endless pool of hit points. I had to put the Moon Druid. The Moon Druid is just the quintessential Druid. It plays on one of the core aspects of the Druid class better than any other circle does by a mile, which is of course their ability to Wild Shape. To start off, you can Wild Shape as a bonus action rather than an action. That is already awesome. But in that same feature, you gain the ability to expend a spell slot as a bonus action and heal yourself for 1d8 hit points per level of spell slot expended. So now, not only do you have a whole bunch of hit points on top of your own personal hit points, you can also restore them yourself by using spell slots that you likely won't use a whole lot of otherwise. And all of those can be done as bonus actions. Also, at 2nd level, your ability to Wild Shape allows you to change into creatures of a higher CR. In fact, right away, you can transform into creatures with a CR of 1, rather than the base Druid CR of 1/4. So at 2nd level, you can already transform into a creature roughly 4 times more powerful than a normal Druid, and you can do it as a bonus action. At 6th level, your attacks in beast form count as magical for the purposes of overcoming magical resistance. At this point in the game, you usually aren't really fighting anything that even has those resistances quite yet, so you'll never run into the issue of dealing half or no damage to creatures with magical resistance throughout the entire game. At 10th level, you can just straight up transform into any of the 4 elementals in the game. For perspective on how strong that is, the Moon Druid's Wild Shape rule states that starting at 6th level, you can transform into a creature of a CR equal to 1/3 of your Druid level rounded down. So at 10th level, that's CR 3. All the elementals are CR 5. So this circle just blatantly breaks its own rule because why not? Not to mention, the elementals have some awesome abilities and a fair amount of HP, especially the Earth Elemental with a solid 126. Also, each of the Earth Elementals attacks deals 2d8 plus 6, and they have multi-attacks, so that's pretty wild. Pun intended. And at 14th level, just to really end things on a high point, you learn to cast Alter Self at will. So now, even when you're not in beast form, you can gain the abilities of beasts whenever you want. And that's all the features of the Moon Druid. But that's not all. The final features of the base Druid class have some insane bonuses to Wild Shape that obviously benefit the Moon Druid way more than any other circle. To begin with, at 18th level, you can cast any spell that requires only verbal and somatic components while in beast shape. So you're only limited by material components. Now that is a pretty limited spell list, but that's still really friggin' good. And of course, at 20th level, you can Wild Shape an unlimited number of times, and that whole components limitation I mentioned a moment ago, that goes away too. You can just cast all your Druid spells while ignoring verbal, somatic, and material components altogether in or out of beast form. So yeah, needless to say, Moon Druid is nuts. We all knew this, but it is still crazy when you look at it this closely and consider all of the possibilities. The other circles are strong, but Moon Druid definitely makes a pretty damn convincing case for being the strongest Druid circle of all of them. Alright, that is my ranking of the 5 Druid circles. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ranking. Now, I will say Jetpack 7 has some very exciting stuff we've been working on recently, and I'll be releasing an announcement video here soon, so keep an eye out for that to hear about what we've been doing. But until then, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you around.